Okay, I put up a video talking about how the time to step up and defend the Republic was now. This is a follow-up video to this. I'm going to talk about entrapment and the entire situation with these FBI counter terrorism programs, these law enforcement counterterrorism programs. Uh, it's hit the news a lot that they borderline on entrapment. So we're going to look at the legal definition of entrapment, and I'm also going to talk to you about psyops or psychological warfare. Give me a moment. Now, to begin with, we're going to talk about entrapment. I'm going to post a image from www.lectlaw.com. This is a legal website that covers legal definitions. In the legal definition of entrapment, it states that there are three criteria that must be made. First, the idea of committing the crime came from the government agents and not from the person accused of the crime. Second, the government agents then persuaded or talked the person into committing the crime. Simply giving him the opportunity to commit the crime is not the same as persuading him to commit the crime. Third, the person was not ready and willing to commit the crime before the government agent spoke with him. So we're going to work this couple different ways. First of all, you notice the words government agents. That's because most snitches, most informants do not work alone. They work in conjunction with other informants. Usually, and this is from my experience, a lot of times a lot of snitches are related to other snitches. And a lot of them work in conjunction. I unfortunately have two cousins who are both informants for the police department. I'm not going to mention their names, but everyone knows them. Anyway, uh, they're all the time pretending to be against each other, and they don't spend a lot of time around each other. And what they'll do is they'll come in, and one will pretend to be against you, the other will pretend to be for you or helping you, and they'll both set you up. So the when they come in to set you up, usually it's people who are ready and willing to commit a crime to begin with. Let's go into a hypothetical situation here. Let's say you're an active college student. You have no desire to commit a crime. You're not willing to commit a crime. You are not ready or prepared to commit a crime. Um, you don't want to commit the crime to begin with, but you are against certain things. Let's say, hypothetically, you are against abortion. You want to stage a protest at an abortion clinic because you're young and stupid and think you can change the world. Yeah, I've gone through that ideology and I've learned differently. Um, Here's the thing about it. So you organize a group to stand up against abortion, and you go out and you arrange for your protest. Now, you always have that one idiot in the group that's like, yeah, we should go do this or some act of violence, go over the top because it'll get attention and they want attention. You're not bringing attention to the issue. You're not helping the issue. You're just destroying the issue with violence. Everyone in the group knows this. So the person involved uh, begins with their argument of trying to commit a crime by, firebombing the abortion clinic. No one's going to get hurt. A couple Molotov cocktails on the roof. It looks all scary. They have fire extinguishers. Fire department shows up. They spray it down with the water hose, and it's all cool. Everybody's against this. This person gets up and then they persuade. This is the second thing. The government agents then persuade and talk the person into committing the crime. Simply giving them the opportunity to commit the crime is not the same as persuading them to commit the crime. So you have these two agents, let's say these three agent provocateurs, and they're all sitting there like, well, violence is needed because you have to look at violence. And somebody says, well, what about Gandhi? What about Martin Luther King? So this person stands up and says, you know what, here's the thing about it. What made Gandhi so successful was while he was using passive resistance, it was justifying the people who were willing to stand up and use violent resistance. The same with Martin Luther King, even though he was going out here being sprayed with fire hoses and beaten with batons and had dogs sicked on him. You had other groups like the original Black Panther Party that were out here with guns and batons and saying, we've had enough. We'll defend ourselves no matter what. We don't care if you're cops, and that's what gave the credence to Martin Luther King. So we have to use passive resistance to justify militant resistance, and the militant resistance will therefore scare the government into paying attention to us and giving us what we want. It'll happen on this curse. Now, that's a very convincing argument, except for the fact that the original Black Panther Party wasn't just a militant group. They also did things like they were organizing programs to progress literacy, to take adults who were illiterate and to teach them to read. They were doing these in church basements. They were taking people who had certain skills and allowing them, giving them an opportunity to better their communities. So it wasn't just a militant, we're going to defend our community no matter what. It was also the idea of helping the community, progressing the community, trying to create infrastructure and jobs in the community. The original Black Panthers even fought against crime to a certain degree. And it wasn't just white on black crime, it was black on white crime, black on black crime. They were trying to get crime out of their area. So there's a hole in the entire argument I made, but that argument can be used to persuade people. Uh, and that persuasion, even the idea of talking to people, making a logical argument, rationalizing things, can be used to uh, 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 persuade people, especially if you induce things like drugs or drama, cause conflicts in a person's relationship. You know, all of that. One person espousing violence goes out and starts hitting on the target's girlfriend to create a situation to where the other two informants who are trying to act counter to this one is over there like, well, it's because he's this manly man and he stands up for himself, and you should go stand up for yourself and prove to little Mary that you're willing to stand up for yourself and go firebomb this abortion clinic. And then the third the third little criteria here is that the person must not be ready and willing to commit the crime before the government agent spoke to them. So before they create this whole little net. The problem is, usually when you're in that situation and your emotions are flying and there's so much conflict and so many things going on, especially when you're young, because I mean, let's face it, I live near college. I know this for a fact. Yes, college students do engage in drugs on a very regular basis. It's very common. College is that time for college students to go out and experiment and try new things and all that, which is why a lot of new philosophies that aren't traditional are able to reach them. Well, not because of the drugs, but because we're trying new things. Let me clarify that real quick. Uh, the whole situation in this is that it means that young people are easier to set up, easier to be drawn into this. Now, I mentioned that we're going to talk about psychological operations, and here's the thing about it. A lot of what you see in certain cases, one case I was looking at where these guys decided to throw Molotov cocktails at a sign at a Democratic convention and were arrested and sentenced for terrorism. The uh, the situation was that the guy who came up with the plan, the ringleader behind it, this guy was a government agent. He was an informant. He probably worked with other informants that weren't mentioned, but it was his idea. He developed the plan for committing the crime. Uh, the other guys weren't exactly ready. They didn't have a plan until the government agent gave it to them. Willing to commit the crime before the government agent spoke with them, possibly. That's where I'm talking about that crime of vandalism, of spray painting something really nasty on the side of the wall of the abortion clinic, or firebombing the roof and people not getting hurt type of BS. The second thing was that the agent had to persuade or talk this person into committing the crime. And that never really played out. Now, the reason why is because a lot of times people feel that by dissenting against their government or something like that, or recording conversations where you talk to other people about dissenting within the government, um, that these things are felt like a violation of trust because these people are your friends and you don't want to violate their trust because they're your friends. Here's the reality of the matter. Number one, people who claim to be your friends but try to talk you into doing something wrong aren't your friends. You should have learned that in fucking grade school. Uh, you know, all these things factor in on different levels, but they're common sense stuff. And the same games that were played in grade school and junior high and high school are the same things that get played in adult life, just on a grander scale and more dangerous terms. So the basic concept for it is something you should have learned as a kid. Now, I mean, how many of us were there that had that buddy in school that was like, "Hey, I got this idea. Let's go steal some rubber bands and paper clips off the teacher's desk and make a little toy bow and arrow out of them." I did. He talked me into it. It was his idea. He had the idea. He had this brilliant plan and everything else. Uh, I wasn't really ready to steal paper clips and rubber bands off the teacher's desk until it was, brought up to me and it was persuaded to me and everything else. And that not being ready and willing to commit the crime before the agent spoke with them is an important issue. Because here's the thing about it, all right? You can have, and you have to realize the departmentalization of the government doesn't matter. This idea of dual sovereignty is bullshit. Especially here in West Virginia. Article 1 of the West Virginia State Constitution says that the laws and treaties of the United States of America should be the supreme law of the land in West Virginia, which means we don't. We're basically big ass a big ass country version of DC. Um, the and when you're looking at these fusion centers and these government agencies and how you have FBI liaisons to the state and county and city agencies through the federal government and everything else, and you're getting all this collaboration of law enforcement. Uh, it's you can throw the idea of dual sovereignty out. It's already been established that when Lincoln uh, came to power during the Civil War, and the Civil War occurred, it was already established then that the federal power supposedly constituted a greater power than state power. So state rights were destroyed at the Civil War. That was 100 years ago. Get over it. That's life. Um, but when you start looking at this on that level, you can have influence coming at you from police harassment, giving you a reason to want to stand up and fight and to commit a terrorist act. That's a government agent um, affecting you before you're not ready or willing to commit the crime until you keep getting harassed by it. You can have government agents as informants trying to persuade you and talk you into committing a crime, an act of terrorism, as an example. Um, the idea, the plan for committing this act of terrorism might come about as the agents are talking to you while the police are harassing you at the same time. The informants are trying to convince you to go do something, which ultimately comes out as a terrorist act. Now, that's all entrapment, and you have to realize the departmentalization of this person not being connected to this person, and all these little curtains for saying this little maze of curtains that says none of this stuff is all related is basically just that. It's a maze of curtains, because when you pull back the curtains, you ultimately find out the maze is just one giant room and you can walk straight through it. What you think is a wall of separation is nothing more than a curtain which can be pulled back and forth whenever it's convenient for the person on the other side of that curtain. Uh, so all this departmentalization is just more red tape and bureaucracy and BS to hide the simple fact that all this basically is fundamentally handled, even though it's through different agencies, it's still handled up and down a specific chain of command, which has liaisons interconnecting those agencies. For example, an informant, a known informant for a city police officer might be, simply because he was known to be an informant for a city police officer, might be used as an informant for a state, county, or federal authority, which creates that interesting little situation because that departmentalization curtain gets pulled back and forth whenever they need to use that informant. If we need that informant over here, we'll pull back this curtain. This what you're told is this big stone wall that can't be moved. Because you're on the other side of it, gets pulled back so they can, this agency can use this guy or that agency can use that guy. So what you're looking at here is a basis, and this isn't proof of, this is simply the ability to have a PSYOP here, where government agents acting through different departments, using informants, going through unofficial channels, can use an informant, use multiple agencies to induce a terrorist act or to induce a criminal act. And believe me, this happens. Various elements of this type of collaboration have been uncovered at various times. In fact, the FBI's counterintelligence program from back in the day that was found to be almost criminal has also mirrors the current FBI's counterterrorism program. So, back then it was communist, now it's terrorist. Same difference. It's that boogeyman that you have to defend yourself against and be worried about because the boogeyman's coming to get you. Please. The ultimate reality behind this is that, like I said, there's this curtain, this illusion of a stone wall that's really nothing more than a curtain, which can slide back and forth whenever the guy on the other side of that curtain wants you to. And so what you're looking at here is the potential for the government to inspire terrorist attacks, to create terrorist attacks. And that potential alone, I'm pretty sure, has been abused at some point or another. That potential is there. And when you're looking at certain occasions, like the two young men who firebombed the monitor, wherever you want to call it, at the Democratic convention, or had the plan to do so. What you find here is that the government agent developed the plan, persuaded them into doing it. You're not really sure if they were willing to commit the crime before anything, before the agent spoke with them, and there's no proof that they were, but there's no proof that they weren't, which, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but for people who speak out against the government, when people start coming to you with ideas about violence and plans and everything else, my suggestion is to play along with it, let them speak freely, record it a couple of times, and if it turns out that these people happen to be informants on some level, you can find this out by going to your local courthouse and looking up public records to find out. A big tip off of this is if a person had charges, and usually they'll put down multiple charges as separate cases, even though they might be tried together. If this person had, 4 felony arrests, and all 4 of these felony arrests were dismissed due to a plea bargain with the state, or, you can also look up federal criminal records as well, public info. If these people are coming back and it's showing that, they've had those types of plea bargains and stuff with the state or the feds or whatever, then you basically know they're an informant. So you basically know it's entrapment and a setup and everything else. And not only should you not do it because they're going to keep harassing you and coming at you until you do it, or until they just, completely get done bashing their head against the wall. That right there shows that you can show that, hey, they're being harassed. These people are bothering you. They're trying to set you up. And the important thing with this isn't so much to have it there so you can go out and commit a terrorist act, to be like, oh, well, look, they entrapped me. Because then when you do that, it's just going to show that you were trying to get out of it and cover your tracks. It's important that you don't commit the terrorist act and then still prove that these people were trying to entrap you. Actually, more so. Because it proves that you weren't ready or willing to commit a criminal act, and that you actually actively fought against the idea of committing a criminal act, even against entrapment and coercion. Now, that being said, when I was talking about a PSYOP earlier in the video, this is what I want to get to. The PSYOP, the psychological operation, the psychological warfare operation, however you want to think of it, comes down as this. When you start putting informants in a position to be leaders and to try to inspire people to have a violent revolt or to stand up and defend themselves with violence or anything like that, what you end up doing is essentially creating this atmosphere of anyone who says to stand up for your rights, anyone who says to resist tyranny or oppression, or to fight back against false charges or any of this, is automatically going to be seen as, oh, they're a terrorist. They're trying to entrap me. Here's the problem. When you start doing that, you start giving people a reason not to fight back. I've noticed that since a lot of these counterterrorism operations by the FBI have gone on, you see a lot less stuff on YouTube and the internet, people talking about standing up and that things are unconstitutional or illegal with the government. And the reason for this, and this probably goes back to the whole thing with Doomsday Prepper, is the fact that these people are trying to use different agencies. You know, oh, well, this person's mentally deficient. If you don't go along with their plan to go out and commit a terrorist act, or they can't entrap you, then they proclaim you crazy because they're trying to keep you from getting up here talking about the fact that they tried to entrap you. So in those cases of entrapment, you need to come suddenly, you need to come fast, you need to bring this stuff out to the news. I suggest sending it to multiple news agencies, including Infowars.com. I'm not the biggest fan in the whole world of Alex Jones, but I think that, you know, if you start giving this information to guys like Alex Jones and David Icke and you know, the conspiracy nuts, they can get it put out there. When the fact that you sent it to actual news crews who the actual mainstream media who had an opportunity to see this and didn't address it, didn't deal with these facts, even though when you send it out, you need to also push it up the chain of command. My suggestion is push it up, you know, one or two steps up the chain of command, and then just jump right over them, and then let it explode to the media, so that you're not worried about that chain of command. You know, shit rolls downhill, so you need to be coming up the chain of command, moving up the chain of command with your bitching, whining, and complaining at the same time, causing, you know, issues for the figureheads, the people higher up, and then let it move down until eventually they're going to meet in the middle. And because well, I mean, this is really honestly getting crazy. If you start fighting this little psyop, this little idea that any sort of dissent is therefore terrorism, and any sort of dissent makes you crazy and a nutter and a possible terrorist, you know, right now the time to stand up and use violence hasn't came yet. And anytime you do step, and when it does come, if you do step up to do so, you're only going to make yourself look crazy, because there's no proof that, you know, the government's actually doing any harm, because all the people who are getting caught in the entrapment, who are being set up, have no proof that they're being set up. And the best thing you can do is not allow them to set you up and to be able to show where they were trying to essentially trap you.